Okay, we are live on YouTube. So you might not want to curse and you might want to hold the gossip to a minimum, or at least text me with the gossip. Sam's here too. Hey, Sam.
This is all you need.
Hey, how are you?
Good, you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm chiming in from the Lone Star State.
Oh, thanks for joining us. I wanna see a ranch. Turn on camera. We want to see a ranch. Yeah, we're getting no video for some reason. Oh, there you are. Hey, I was close. Not quite a ranch, but a nice piece of property and a beverage that I wish I was joining you for. Oh, no, I think you're muted now.
I'm going to shut my camera off for a moment, okay?
Understood. You don't want to make everybody jealous. Like the summer beard.
Thank you.
Hi, Joan.
Hi. How's everybody?
Good. How are you doing?
Not bad, thank God.
Good to hear. Finally had a nice day.
Hallelujah.
Let me change the camera view here. Katie, we are live on Facebook. I
Great,
have
thanks.
2 minutes too. I typically open it to attendees at 6 p.m. If you'd like to continue that.
That sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
I just lost everybody. Oh, boy.
You can't see us at all?
Oh, here we go. All right, I'm back.
It's interesting. So far, only board members. Well, just our board. I mean, we have plenty of CB6 members who should be here too. We're the early group.
How's the kids, Jeremy?
2 of them are draped on me. You just can't see it right now. And one of them sleeping on the floor. When I'm home, there's at least one on top of me in some fashion, or acts as a pillow. Katie, one of my clocks says 6 p.m. With your permission, I will open up the webinar.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
No problem. We should see attendees start to populate. Oh, and this meeting is being recorded.
Thanks everyone for joining. We're just going to give folks a few minutes to pop on. Recording.
Katie, did you have a name from the BP's office?
Just checking now, actually. Thank you.
Katie, is it possible for us to share our screen? We had some last minute edits on our presentation.
Hi, Emily. I
Emily,
will,
at the proper time, I'll be able to give you that ability.
Perfect. Thank you.
And it'll be you who will be sharing the screen?
No, it'll be Denise Mendez.
Okay, great. Just, I might need a reminder, but we could do it quick.
No problem.
Jeremy, the borough president's office is sending Ryan Lynch.
Oh, okay.
Thanks everyone for joining. We're just giving people a few more minutes to trickle in, but really appreciate everyone being here so promptly. Jeremy, do you see Eric and Hildegard and Smara? Are they added as panelists? They're the
I'm here.
three CB6.
Eric's here.
Great.
I can make them co-hosts.
So yeah, it should be Eric, who I see. I've got Hildegard and then
Yep,
Smara. Thank you.
you got it.
Hi, how are you, Katie?
Good. Sorry, I can't see everybody. I think that was Hildegard, but I'm good. So if you all are just joining, I think we've hit I see 80 on my side, 82 participants.
Oh, wow.
This number is going up pretty quickly, but we will just about get started. I have the agenda projected here, but I will be going through that in a few minutes. What we'd like to do to kick off this meeting on last mile trucking is we have our practice on our side, on the CB7 side, is we're going to do roll call for our committee members. So we'll do that first.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I will be calling Community Board 7's committee members' name. Once I call your name, please unmute yourself, say present, and then.
Sorry, Maria, when I muted everybody, that included you too.
Okay. All right, so I will be calling Community Board 7's committee board members their names. Once I call your name, please unmute yourself, say present, and mute yourself once again. Thank you. Okay, Cesar Zuniga. Cesar Zuniga. Catherine Walsh.
Present.
Thank you. Nick Azadian.
Present.
Thank you. Stacy Boyd. Stacy Boyd. Gladys Bruno. Gladys Bruno. Cynthia Felix.
Present. Hi, Maria. Hi, everyone.
Hi, thank you. John Fontillis.
I'm here.
Thank you. Cynthia Gonzalez. Cynthia Gonzalez. Zach Jacey. Zach Jacey. Christina Lem. Christina Lem. Sam Sierra. Sam,
Present.
thank you. That's it for the committee members.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, I will turn to some opening remarks and then just talk through what I want to do is talk through the agenda, and then I'll give some context for the meeting today. I'll provide CB7 perspective, but then also just jump to our CB6 chairs as well. So you all can see our plan for tonight. Again, really appreciate everyone showing up for this really important discussion on last mile trucking. We have 4 sections for tonight. We have opening, welcoming comments. For any of our elected officials who are here, you're invited to speak directly after the committee chairs. We're asking everyone at this opening time for 3 minutes. Jeremy is going to help us keep time from CB7, and then also you'll see a clock. So we'll go elected officials for opening comments, CB7, CB6, community board members, and then the public. A prompt you can consider is what brought you here tonight, and what are some of the questions and concerns that you have before we launch into more of the content. Then the second section, we have presentations that have been requested specifically to the Department of City Planning and the Department of Transportation. They are both here tonight. They'll be sharing their screens, walking through a presentation, should be about between the two of them. We've asked for presentations in the 7 to 10 minute time frame. And then we will move into CB6 and CB7. These are the panelists that were invited and confirmed. So from these offices, several elected representatives and community-based organizations. And similar in that section, we're asking to be mindful of the timing, and we've asked for about 3 minutes each as you make those panelists remarks. And then our session of the night around questions and comments, where we opened it back up to the CB6 and CB7 community board members, and then to our public. So we'll have a couple of these opportunities to engage. Are there any other ways for facilitating this meeting, Jeremy, that you wanted me to make sure to call out?
I think we're good, Katie.
Okay, that's great. So I'll just introduce myself, and then I'd like to ask each of the CB6 committee chairs who are facilitating this meeting, introduce themselves and explain their perspective of sharing this meeting. We are experiencing both here in Sunset Park, CB7 and all of the corresponding community board as for 7 and CB6, a rise in these last mile trucking facilities, Sunset Park and Red Hook, and the implications for the community ranging from infrastructure to air quality to health and safety, and the connectivity of our streets and pedestrians. This is a growing concern, and there was a special subcommittee that was created on last mile, specifically in CB7. We had our first meeting on this in early May, and this is effectively our second committee meeting. But it was extremely important to host this meeting with CB6 and to continue this conversation with CB6 because of the implications of last mile and Red Hook. And I will leave our Red Hook community members and organizations and committee members to talk about this. But this is a contiguous waterfront. Our streets are connected, our air is connected, and we are all addressing similar challenges and concerns and issues in development. And so this is a really important conversation that really has to be held. And our community boards are not alone. There's other parts of New York. Last mile trucking facilities, e-commerce has risen significantly also with COVID and the pandemic, and what that's meant in terms of people's own choices around delivery. And so we can talk a little tonight about the current facilities that we're aware of that are already under development and in construction, but there may be others. So again, there's a wide-ranging perspectives on this issue, wide-ranging issues on this tonight, but I appreciate everyone who you will be hearing from and the public to really engage us. I would like to turn to the CB6 committee chairs to ask them to provide their perspective before we turn to our welcome and opening comments. Can I turn to Eric?
Sure, thanks, Katie. My name's Eric McClure. I'm the first vice chair and transportation co-chair of Community Board 6. Welcome, thanks for joining us this evening, and thanks to Community Board 7 for taking the lead role in organizing this meeting. I won't belabor the point because Katie covered the myriad of issues that we're being faced with by these last mile warehouse facilities. Red Hook, which is part of Community Board 6, is looking at several planned facilities throughout the neighborhood. Because these projects are all as of right, there is not a tremendous amount of city oversight. So I think as a board are really looking to our local elected officials in City Hall to take the bull by the horns here We're anxious to hear from the Department of City Planning and the Department of Transportation. We have requested a comprehensive trucking study for Community Board 6 from the Department of Transportation, fully cognizant that as far as the last mile facilities go, they have very little ability to influence the development of these facilities when they're as of right. So looking forward to the discussion tonight, and again, welcome and thank you.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Hildegard?
Hi, my name is Hildegard Link. I am co-chair of the Environmental Committee for Brooklyn Community Board 6. Our concerns are very much the environmental concerns that Katie brought to the fore. In addition to us being concerned about your ordinary run-of-the-mill environmental concerns, Red Hook is a substantially non-affluent, non-European neighborhood. At least 2/3 of the population in Red Hook live in public housing, and as such, any environmental impacts that are inflicted on the neighborhood as a result of last mile trucking become environmental justice issues. So we are working very hard to find ways to manage the negative impacts on neighbors, our neighbors in Red Hook. Thank you.
Thank you. And Samara?
Hi, I'm Samara Trilling. I am the co-chair of the Economic Waterfront Community Development and Housing Committee on CB6. I am the community development part of that equation. Yeah, I think echo everything my colleagues have said. I'm a Red Hook resident. I live on Van Brunt Street. Some of the things that we've sort of, our committee has taken up in the past, and then I'm excited to sort of hear more about our potential ways of being able to ameliorate the consequences of last mile warehouses, including altering truck routes. We've talked about electrification of final mile delivery vans. We've talked about sort of supplying via the waterfront. We've talked about local jobs. All of those are lenses that I hope to be able to bring tonight. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. So just for the new joiners as well, just to go through this agenda one more time at the top.
Katie, could I just say for 1 second, it's come to my attention that some CB6 members are here as attendees and not as panelists. Some of them
I can work on that.
Some of them have sent me a Q&A. If they would send us a Q&A, we're more than happy to make them panelists. And thank you, Samara, for volunteering to help us with that.
Great, thank you. So just on those logistics, just I'm going to run through the agenda at the top for welcoming and opening comments. If we have the elected officials themselves that are here, I'm going to turn to them in a second. Then CB7 and CB6 community board members, we'll add you as panelists, as you just heard, and then public comment. And then we're going to move into presentations from Department of City Planning, Department of Transportation, then our panelists that were invited and confirmed from those offices, and then questions and comments. This is just, you can get a sense of our panelists who confirmed, and we had some panelists who were invited and we did not hear back for this meeting and send regrets, but there will be more meetings on last mile. So we anticipate inviting them and having them join us in the next meeting and looking at expanding that list of invitations. So with that, Jeremy's going to help me out tonight. Do we have any elected officials who have joined that you can recognize?
So I saw one so far. That was Jabari Brisport.
Great. Welcome to Jabari.
Hey everybody, thanks for hosting this meeting. I'm obviously here to listen, so I won't, take up a bunch of time just chatting, but it is a pleasure. And for those who don't know me, I represent the 25th State Senate District, which includes Red Hook and the industrial parts of Sunset Park. So pleasure to be here, and this is awesome. This is the first time I've ever been at like a joint community board meeting. So thank you for putting this together.
Thanks, Senator.
Katie, I also have Carlos Menchaca.
Okay. Oh, great.
Hi. Hey, Katie and everyone. I am really excited to be here to listen to the report back from City Planning and Transportation. Katie and others were present at a meeting that we held that really literally walked them through the neighborhood of Sunset Park. I mean, the Red Hook, and pointed to Sunset Park. So I'm really excited to kind of see what they are working on. I think we were very clear about what we wanted to do, and we know that we don't have a lot of structural power in this. This isn't a rezoning where we could say no or negotiate. We're fighting against, as Eric said, as of right, but it doesn't. It never stops us. And Senator Brisport, good to see you. Happy summer to you and the entire community board. The thing that joins the CB6 and CB7 energy on the waterfront is the fact that this is also a council district, and there's a lot that we can join in force. And I'm really excited to see where this goes. And you have the council behind you. Thank you.
Thanks, council member. Jeremy, is there anyone else? Electeds? We'll get to the offices later. If not, then I will go to Community Board 7 and Community Board 6, community board members, and then the public. And if you'd like to share comments, questions that you're coming to the meeting with tonight. So we'll start with community board members.
Katie, I see hands up, or one hand up. Should I call them? I don't know if you could see them.
It would be super helpful if you could call on folks. Thanks, Jeremy.
Okay. So I have Jerry Armour from Board 6.
Hi there, everybody. I think the role I wanted to follow tonight for myself is to sit and listen to the presentation from City Planning and DOT and see what they're planning to do. Eric was absolutely correct and right on point when he said it's as of right, and we have to think what we can do working with our council people. So I'm going to sit and listen and see what direction we can go in and what I can learn that I don't know already. So thank you for holding this meeting.
I have Ariel Krasno.
Hi, I'm another co-chair of the Economic, Waterfront, Community Development and Housing as the housing chair. I am also on the Land Use Committee, and in our role as community board members, we often do our best to press forward issues, whether or not they have we have a particular role in it, as we would in Europe, which we don't here, but we can certainly. Our voice matters, and so the more we know about it, the more options that are made known to us that we can press for, the more effective I think we can be. And I'm interested in hearing about that.
I have Rick Luftglass next.
Hi, this is Rick Luftglass. I'm the Economic Development Chair of the CB6 Economic Waterfront Community Development and Housing Quartet. And I certainly am interested in learning. I'm particularly interested in the workforce development and job opportunities. The greater concerns here feel to be around environmental justice and traffic and safety. The economic opportunities really come down to both jobs created, quality of those jobs, growth opportunities. And as Hildegard spoke to, the community of Red Hook is significantly low income relative to not just the community board, but the city, and high levels of unemployment. So I care about that. We have seen historically, as with IKEA and also Fairway, that turnover was an issue and promotional opportunities were an issue. And so we are interested and concerned about those opportunities for employees moving forward and for reporting that happens on job tenure and promotional opportunities. Thank you.
Sorry. I have Madeline Murphy next.
Hi, I'm a committee member on both the Landmarks Land Use and the Transportation Committee. And on top of that, I live in Red Hook, right next to where they're building one of these last mile warehouses. There's quite a few of them. The other problem nobody wants to mention is that some of these warehouses where they're going to be doing most of their traffic is through an area where we have the ball fields and the Red Hook pool. There's going to be a lot of kids there. There's also a couple of schools along these routes. You know, I don't think anybody's thinking about what's going on. And as for jobs, I don't think that Amazon's got such a good history with people. That's about all I've got to say at the moment.
Thank you. I have Robert Levine next.
Thank you. Robert Levine, I'm a member of CT6, past chair of Landmarks. I'd like to think more than just the last mile that we're talking about, but how do we get in and out of the area that has these warehouses, Red Hook and adjacent areas. Right now, trucks, and I can only use garbage trucks as an example because you can tell right away where they're from and labeled, come out of the Hamilton Avenue station and go basically straight up 9th Street to 8th Avenue and out to Grand Army Plaza and out Eastern Parkway into Central Brooklyn. All of which is which is only a truck route up to 4th Avenue. And going backwards, if you try to go from Central Brooklyn to that area and you get to Atlantic Avenue, you can't make a left from Atlantic Avenue anywhere that lets you into the docks area, the last mile area, whatever you want to call that whole area. And it's impossible to do so. They have no choice than to do what they're doing now, which is going down Eastern Parkway and reversing it through Grand Army Plaza, through Prospect Park West, down 9th Street. And that's got to stop. 9th Street's a residential street. And that's why the truck route stops at 4th Avenue. And I know that it's been pushed on, and CB7 has asked in the past to have their truck routes for getting their trucks out to skip 20th and 21st and go up to 7th Avenue before they make the right turn into CB7. So I don't want to see the same thing happen again now. I know they didn't do it, but my understanding is that there was a suggestion at one point, and we really have to be careful on what we need to do where we're really overloading the residential streets. We can't get onto the Atlantic Avenue, onto the other large streets, which we're supposed to have trucks. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to encourage everyone who's a community board member, if you want to speak, to raise your hand. We have presentations that we want to get to. We have public comment that we really want to hear from. So please be mindful of this. I'm asking everyone to be thoughtful about the 3 minute. So with that, Jeremy, you can let us know who's next.
Sure. Let me also say there's one attendee with a hand up. This is not the time for attendees. There are 2 attendees with hands up now. This is not the time for attendees. You're welcome to keep hands up. We'll call you at a later portion. If you are a member of CB6 and I don't know that, please tell me in the Q&A, or if somebody from CB6 can tell me. Nick Azadian, you're next.
Nick, you're muted.
Try that again. I'll keep my comments brief, but generally this is a multifaceted issue that has a lot of different components to it, speaking primarily in both land use in terms of planning and transportation, pollution, And, tonight I'd like to hear specifically what, the city has in mind for this, as well as, what our elected representatives feel that they can do about it. Because this is a very, very important issue to a very large section of both Red Hook and Sunset Park, and Brooklyn as well. And it's certainly not something that should be taken lightly, and something that I hope that our elected officials fully understand the gravity of, as it'll affect the livelihoods of pretty much every resident of both neighborhoods. Thank you.
Allison Reeves.
Hi, I'm a member of the CB6 Landmarks Land Use Committee, and just wanted to say just briefly that I agree, of course, with most of what everyone has said about the environmental justice and the traffic and everything. But my concern is that there's really nothing to prevent any additional projects like this from happening right now. So I would really like to see either some sort of special permit required or moratorium on these types of this use until we can kind of get a handle on the influx of all these projects that are currently being built. Yeah, that's it. That's my comment.
Thanks,
Katie,
Allison.
I see no additional panelists' hands up.
Okay, that's great. So we're going to move to public comment with the prompt again around questions, things you're coming to the meeting with. And you can raise your hand, and Jeremy's going to help us with this. 3 minutes, and we have a timekeeper from Jeremy. Thank you.
So who will be speaking now?
So this is public comment. So
okay.
I'll call in a few because I can see some. So Karen Blundell, and we'll do that in three minutes each.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is Karen Blundell. I'm speaking today as a long-term resident of Red Hook Houses, as an organizer in the Gowanus area. And I just want to speak about the fact that we keep hearing that it's as of right is as of right. Well, I want to maintain, if it is as of right, then the truck route that is now the as of right truck route in Red Hook should remain the north-south route. It should not cut across the Red Hook houses in any way, form, or fashion, specifically Columbia Street. This is also residential. When you talk about residential along Bay Street, at least they have trees over there. 500 of our trees have been cut down. The trucks are already idling here because they put an additional traffic light at Mill Street and Columbia, which didn't make any sense to me or the rest of the residents over here. We don't have any trees. We cannot take the PM 2.5 particle matter in this area. That would definitely create additional health problems for the Red Hook Houses community. At the same time, as a member of Resilient Red Hook, I like to say that Van Brunt Street has a 72-inch main that starts at the north end of the canal. It's called the Lorraine Bond sewer line. It runs from Bond and Douglas all the way over to Lorraine Street. It then picks up another line at Columbia, goes in front of Fairway, which is now called Food Bazaar on Beard, across from Hometown Barbecue. And then it goes down Van Brunt Street and all the way over to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. We put that in place with the 197A plan in Red Hook. That infrastructure is over 30 years old. We demand that Amazon, the people rezoning the Gowanus area, they all foot the bill to make sure that the infrastructure they will be riding across can handle the weight, the vibration, and etc. The buildings on Van Brunt Street cannot take that amount of truck traffic, but neither can the lungs inside of public housing. So the same way y'all keep telling us we can't do nothing because it was built as of right in the community, yet y'all were able to do something about storage centers and about storage and gyms and stuff like that. This city does what it wants to do. What we want is enforcement around the truck routes. We don't want any electric
Finish up,
vehicles
please.
unless the community is educated on electric vehicles. We
Thank you.
want emissions. We want a low emission zone where you can't emit a certain amount of PM 2.5. And
Thank you, Karen, for sharing your public comment. And we're going to keep going for public comment. We have the 3-minute time frame. Okay, Jeremy, can you help me with who's next? You're muted.
Yep, we have a number of attendees. I should start calling those, Katie.
Yes, thank you very much.
I have John Santori first.
Great.
He's using an older version of Zoom. Do I have your permission to promote him to a panelist?
Sure.
I can't unmute him.
Sure.
John, you could unmute yourself.
Sorry, Jeremy. Thank you very much. I just wanted to read these thoughts. So the big question to ask yourself that I would encourage people to ask themselves is, what does success look like? What do you want to happen and why? By the way, I'm a Sunset Park resident, so I'm also very concerned about the Sunset Industrial Park development as well. So in terms of what do you want to happen, for example, do you want the facilities to operate as designed? Do you want them to change their operation in some way? Or do you want new ones to be blocked and existing facilities to be closed as soon as possible? Those are possible things that you can advocate for specifically. To think about as you're answering that question, 1, do you have the information you need about these facilities? If not, what do you need to get? What information do you need to get about them, and how can you obtain that information? 2, should all of the facilities be viewed in the same way? Should the Amazon facilities be seen in the same way as the UPS facilities? Facility, for example, why or why not? 3, assuming you want to change or eliminate these facilities, what approaches could be pursued and investigated? What laws could be passed at the city, state, or federal level to change or eliminate these facilities? What regulations could be created? Could lawsuits be involved? Is there a way to engage the companies directly to get them to change their practices? Get this information, write it down clearly, and make it public. For example, put it on a shared Google document that everybody can access. We need to document it, make it public. 4, can different strategies and goals work together, or will they contradict each other? For example, some people are investigating trying to get these companies to pivot to waterborne freight. Other people want to get these facilities to close as quickly as possible using different means. Are those strategies compatible, or will they create conflict? Number 5, be transparent with your goals and communicate with each other. Try to understand what other people are working on. Try to work with people who share your goals and try to understand those who are pursuing different goals. The more people that join together on this issue, the more effective everyone will be. 6, as of this moment, where do our elected officials stand? Where do our government agencies stand? Ask all elected officials directly and very clearly, what is your position on these facilities? What does success look like for you? What are you investigating, and what have you found? Get all that written down, make it all public. A 7th point, recognize that this is part of a massive issue. This is a huge industry. It's growing rapidly. Stopping these particular facilities does not mean that the industry goes away or its delivery fleets. If you want to stop this industry, how do we do that? What message do we send to our elected officials? We have to remember that New York City residents love online shopping, and our city government, our state government, and our even federal officials tried very hard to get Amazon to come to this city. Do we want them to still do that, or do we want to change what we're advocating for at the biggest level? I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have Obarima Afriye next. You could unmute yourself. Hi, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Knowledge Westbrooks, and
My name is Naj Westbrooks, and I work with public safety along with Red Hook Initiative. And Red Hook, it's a nonprofit organization. And I don't have a lot to comment. I was just more so having a question. If anybody can answer for me eventually or reach out to me and connect with me and explain that how like the pollution of air in a residential area is a legal thing. And I see how a lot of people are explaining that these businesses have the right to it and they're following things by the policy and how it should be. But I'm just concerned. I live in Red Hook and it's getting harder and harder to breathe as years go by. And I lost my grandmother last year to a respiratory issue that wasn't identified. And the reason of death that they gave her was COVID. And I could tell that she had a hard time breathing. And she explained to me the air that was coming through the window was very toxic. And as I looked with my own eyes, I seen how toxic it was. And it was this through the dirt piles and, rat infestation mountains that the construction workers leave after they finish their job and go home and clock out for the day. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you just registered under another name. I have Betty Bernhardt next. You could unmute yourself.
Hi, yes, my name is Betty. I also work at RHI as an outreach worker. My main concern is the pollution from the trucks because I also have respiratory and I also have asthma. Now, the thing is we have no trees, no nothing. So all these big trucks that do come on to our facility, that's all that we're inhaling inside in our bodies. Now, my question also too, that I understand that the building that's on Bay Street, which is gonna be a frozen product for Amazon and trucks. Now, they're not hiring anybody. They informed me that clearly. They weren't gonna hire nobody from Red Hook or anybody else. So, and I don't think that that's fair because we have a lot of residents that need jobs. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I also have somebody else registered under the name Obarima Afriye. You could unmute yourself.
This is Knowledge again. I just believe I raised my hand twice. That's all.
Okay, no problem. I just see there are a couple of folks registered under the name. Thank you for not taking a second term. I have Jim Tampakis next. You can unmute yourself.
I'm a resilient Red Hook member. I've been in the neighborhood my whole life. I've been down business owner 47 years, my family. I'm just going to read something quickly with the thoughts of resilient Red Hook. The e-commerce and last mile warehouses will dramatically change the character and the quality of life in Red Hook for the worse. Based on the lived experience of resilient Red Hook collaborators and the input of 100 community members who joined in our last mile warehouse conversation on June 16th, we note that Red Hook residents do not feel prepared for the last mile warehouses currently under construction or in the planning phase. Regardless of the city zoning that allows construction of these last mile warehouses as of right, community residents would like to be part of the process and would like to have a seat at the table when these structures are being planned. Red Hook residents are concerned about the lack of economic opportunity afforded to them as part of this business activity. Red Hook residents are also concerned about the environmental impacts of the truck traffic in the neighborhood. Currently, oversized trucks delivering goods to existing warehouses generate more noise than a commercial aircraft landing. Oversized delivery trucks already threaten pedestrian safety and damage street side property and park cars as they make their ways to their final destination. Trucks generate hazardous diesel-based air emissions and give us rise to vibration of the city streets that shake buildings. I'm throwing in one extra thing that within the last 20 years off of Van Brunt Street, we've had 5 building collapses in different areas of Van Brunt Street from trucks, vibration of trucks. Residents are concerned about damage to their housing stock as well as to the streets and underlying sewers, as already in severe disrepair. Residents are concerned that the problems currently experienced will be many times worse once all these last mile warehouses are constructed. For these reasons, Resilient Red Hook demands that residents' concerns be resolved as follows. All vehicles moving goods in and out of the neighborhood in Red Hook have zero impact on Red Hook air quality. All vehicles must have zero vibration vehicles. Last mile warehouse delivery vehicles must have zero impact on pedestrian safety and zero impact on resident property, especially not limited to vehicles parked on the street. Last mile warehouse companies must commit to contributing economically to the repair of Red Hook streets and underlying infrastructure. Current laws relating to the size of vehicles allowed on city streets must be enforced. Current truck routes on the revised routes must be honored, and truck regulation must be aggressively
Please finish.
Okay, I will let it go since my time is up, I guess.
Thank you. A reminder to everybody, you are always welcome to share written testimony with us, and we will add it to the public record.
Okay.
Thank you. I have John Tylowski next. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is John Tylowski. I'm a 1976 graduate of New York Maritime in the Bronx. I've been in the maritime business for 44 years. And I was the chief engineer for Buchanan Marine for 25 years, delivering crushed stone to Red Hook without using trucks at all. Very interested in this problem. I have 6 advisors, all New York Maritime, with between 20 and 40 years of maritime experience. Very interested to hear what the problems are. I formed a company called Altair Transportation. Altair is a famous navigational star, and I'm very curious to hear about this problem. And I think my group can actually help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have Joe Goldfarb next. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, thank you, everybody. I am Joe Goldfarb. I actually have 2 children at the school that is directly in between the 2 mega warehouses that are planned from Amazon. I also work as the director of communications now at that school. And I just want to make everybody aware of the fact that we have around 900 children from kindergarten to grade 12 who will be directly along the planned truck routes. We are very concerned about pedestrian safety. I'm very concerned around how this integrates with Vision Zero, not just for our school, but as Karen said before, those ball fields. There has been significant time and money spent taking the pollutants out of the ground from the ball fields. And now we are adding in not just an environmental safety hazard to the air, we are also making it very dangerous to actually cross the streets to get to the ball fields. So I raised this concern 2.5 years ago with some local officials as soon as the proposed warehouses were kind of in the news in the real estate section. Now I understand there is a 3rd Amazon warehouse that is being proposed on the other side of IKEA. And I do traffic duty and crossing guard duty in the morning. And I just plead with this council, please ask questions about how much a community can take. And please consult Vision Zero in New York City. We have people who are studying pedestrian safety. And I would love to know if there are plans in place or anyone is asking for what do we do if something happens along this route to any pedestrians? What happens? Do all the different warehouses then shut down? I'm not sure if there's anything that can be put in place, but I just wanted to just beg for help from the community boards. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Jackie Painter next.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think so. Well, my comments actually were said, so I guess I'll just reiterate here. You know, in Red Hook, we've had many different conversations about this, very, very efficient conversations, and a lot of what at least I've been hearing, or what we've all been hearing here as Red Hook residents, is making sure that all of the community is involved, because like my neighbor and friend Karen Blondell said earlier, we cannot have these trucks go through Columbia Street or go through any part of the Red Hook houses, which is a large geographical area of our neighborhood. And like someone who was just speaking said, you know, we already have toxic ball fields. And this is truly a racial justice issue. Now it's clear more than ever that they are dumping toxins here in Red Hook, because we are predominantly Black and brown, low income community. And I really would encourage the community boards to always acknowledge that while speaking about this project, and going that extra mile to ensure that the youth are involved, that all Red Hook residents are involved. You know, we can meet in person now. I think a lot of people are comfortable meeting in person now, I'll say it that way. And I'd love to keep seeing these meetings and just making sure that this truck route is not as invasive as it could be. And I also reiterate what someone at the beginning said. I can't wait to see the public statements from our elected officials, because I have yet to see any. So if the community board could help with that, or help get those out if there are them, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Carolina Salgaro next. You could unmute yourself.
Hi, Carlina Salguero here, speaking in my capacity as the founder and head of a maritime nonprofit, Portside, New York. So I just want to concur with all the concerns that Red Hook people voiced in terms of the air pollution, the lack of trees, the need for community involvement, Vision Zero, and the vibrations of the trucks and everything else. I want to speak to the maritime piece, because that's what Portside's about. John Santori has ever had very intelligent kind of questions. I just want to make clear that our particular interest, for example, in talking about the possibilities of waterborne freight here is not sustaining whether they'll keep these warehouses open longer or something else like that. We've actually been talking about this stuff back into the early 2000s. There's city council testimony like from back to 2006 about bringing this stuff in by water. So from our point of view, I am concerned and sorry that we have this pending truckopolis coming to Red Hook, though gratified that it now means that people are hearing some things about the word maritime, because for years, honestly, I felt like I was whistling in the wind, like we can be moving stuff by water, we can doing things by water. And it just like the spaghetti didn't stick to the wall. So John Tylowski, who spoke earlier, is someone who, one of the people who I've recruited to try and help educate the community. Portside is going to be making a web page, and I'm with information, and this is a shout out here for people to send me questions you think that you want answered, what maritime glossary terms, if you have studies already, those things should be posted toward creating a kind of uniform page. We don't have a proprietary feeling about it, but we're just trying to translate this relatively unfamiliar world of maritime for more people. I also want to say in closing that the maritime solution, what we're really hoping for at Portside, and we follow many other people who've been in the industry and advocacy sector of maritime for a long time, is the city as a whole could benefit by having a marine highway within the city limits, regardless of whether we have these e-commerce warehouses here at all. So in advocating for this, I'm not trying to prop up e-commerce or hoping that it props up e-commerce. There's a lot that would help us over the long haul by getting back to using the waterways. And I see I have 48 seconds, and I'm now going to say thank you and goodbye. And thank you all for your commitment to this. And please send ideas, links, posts, questions, whatever, okay? Cheers.
Thank you. I have Marlene Pantin next. You can unmute yourself.
Hi there. This is Marlene Panton. I represent Red Hook Conservancy, and I totally agree. Someone made a point before about how we need to get not only the elected official stances be public, but also what do we want and to put that in writing. I think throughout this process, we want some transparency and inclusiveness. I also want to mention that regardless of where we stand, it would be important as well to determine how do we continue to ensure that many of these warehouses and the people who run them and maintain them actually consider the community in terms of how they use the community. I will give you an example. During the winter, when it snowed, the folks who are doing the the Amazon warehouse took the snow from their side and dumped it in the park. And my organization helps clean the park. Okay. So no one watches them. So therefore they did it. So the question is then how do we ensure, even while we're working on these issues, that those folks, we actually keep an eye on them to ensure that they treat our community with some respect. And lastly, again, the point is being made about trees being cut down, about the ball fields. There are less trees that are going to go in because of what's the remediation that's being done at the ball fields. But I also want to emphasize to everyone, replanting of trees, even at NYCHA, is not going to have an immediate impact in terms of reducing the pollution in the community from trucks, because those trees that were cut down were mature trees, and that is the importance of having trees in the community. You want them to be mature because that is when they actually provide more support in terms of air quality to the community. So the question is, when we have all these trees missing, and then we have these trucks, the air pollution is not going to be a one-time thing, but it will increase incrementally year by year. I therefore think it is important for all of us to ensure that city planning put in place and follow what we are asking for. I agree with, I think Karen said it and others said it, that the city can do whatever they want. They can create changes and policies that are important to the community, but I guess we will have to hold their feet to the fire. So I'm looking forward to working with everyone to ensure that we get what we are seeking that will help improve the community and support the folks who are living here. Thanks.
Thank you. I have somebody whose phone number starts 347721. You could unmute yourself. 347721.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Luis Gonzalez. I'm a longtime resident, initially at Carroll Gardens and now at Red Hook. This is disturbing that there's so much traffic and proposals that there's going to really impact the quality in many different ways. One thing people need to remember also is we have 278 that creates a lot of pollution too. So you have to factor that in. It's not just the trucks that are local. We have Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. So that has to be kept in mind also and use that as a tool. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Carlos Calzadilla next. You can unmute yourself. Oh, sorry, I just muted you.
Hello everyone. My name is Carlos Calzadilla. I am a Red Hook resident and co-director of Red Hook Relief. First, I want to say it's no surprise that Amazon and other large corporations are using Red Hook, a area that is majority Black and brown, to profit. And there was a very substantive meeting that RHI held where we found out that it's going to be over 1,000 trucks a day, and there is a very real human reality of what's going to happen. Is there's going to be people that are going to die. There's people going to be hit by trucks. There's already been, we're actually in the second deadliest 12-month period during the de Blasio administration of traffic violence. So not only can the Red Hook not handle such a small space, 6,000 trucks, people are going to die, and with one of the highest levels of asthma, we are going to have generations affected by the greed of these corporations. And the fact that the community is not at the table is a huge issue. And I want to make sure that our elected officials that advocates make sure that we unite and fight this, because we're not just fighting for a physical community, but we're fighting for generations of lives that will be lost because of what these trucks will do. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Eva Hanhart next. You could unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi, my name is Eva Hanhart, and I'm a urban and environmental planning consultant and have taught planning at Pratt Institute. I worked at city planning on New York City's first comprehensive waterfront plan with responsibility for the significant maritime and industrial areas and waterfront zoning. My comments are today as an advisor to UPROS. The challenges and impacts of e-commerce are being felt throughout the United States, not just in your own communities. Tonight, I want to identify some immediate mitigation approaches and how the challenges are being approached in other cities and states. First, define e-commerce by type, function, size by square feet, and or number of vehicles. Definitions are needed if zoning or other regulations are to be designed. Currently, it is not defined as a use in New York City zoning resolution. California and Massachusetts have good examples of definitions and approaches. Number two, improve environmental enforcement now. Targeted air and water quality and noise monitoring around exhaust filters, vehicle idling and runoff. Now, three, improve traffic and delivery controls and enforcement, including routes, signage, delivery times, targeted enforcement focused on the interface with the larger community. Either incentivize or require the use of electric vehicles, the installation of electric charging stations using electric or regular bikes and cargo bikes. Incentivize or require use of water and rail for both delivery to warehouse and last mile delivery, as called for in the Comprehensive Waterfront Plan Goals and Strategies and Freight New York. Sunset Park and Red Hook are ideally suited for this. Investment may, however, also be needed in waterfront docking and intermodal interface infrastructure. Improve urban site and the site loading dock design at warehouses, parking areas, and the treatment of surfaces to prevent runoff and to limit parking and queuing on neighborhood streets. And then shift the financial incentives from large e-commerce to small local businesses and incentivize links to local products and local manufacturing. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Dan Josephson next. You could unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. Yes, my name is Dan Josephson. I'm a director of operations at another of the schools in the Red Hook area. As I'm sure most of you are aware, the park at Clement Sigourney was just shut down because of construction. We have summer camps going on right now. The kids don't have anywhere to play. This is just a microcosm of what's happening in the Red Hook area right now. And the fact that this is the tip of the iceberg is disturbing, to say the least. There are other parks they're thinking of going to. All the truck traffic from the warehouses makes it dangerous for them to walk there, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes away. So, all I just want to address, what a lot of other people are concerned about, please do not add any more danger to the situation, okay? Not just the students who go to the school that I work at, the students who live in this neighborhood, they don't have places to play. The air is getting polluted. There's going to be more and more traffic. To think that this is going to become more cluttered, more polluted, more dangerous is just unfathomable. So, this summer is sort of a warning shot. Let's look at what's happening right now. Literally, kids don't have a place to play, okay? And that is just one of many examples of what the residents and the students in Red Hook are facing right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Kevin Garcia next. You can unmute yourself.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Kevin Garcia, and I'm the transportation planner for New York City Environmental Justice Alliance. NECHA was founded in 1991 and is a nonprofit citywide membership network linking grassroots organizations from low-income neighborhoods and communities of color in their fight for environmental justice. The rapid growth of the logistics industry and online retail in recent decades has substantially increased the volume and frequency of freight flows in the United States metropolitan areas. Before the pandemic, logistics and online consumption were rapidly growing. Today, online consumption has exponentially grown as more households have been pushed to online shopping for everything from basic goods to groceries. This growth has led to a surge in distribution facilities throughout the city, and in particular in low-income neighborhoods and communities of color. While having goods delivered to your door quickly is convenient, it is not without trade-offs. Having a warehouse located down the street or in your community is not so great. Communities closest to last-mile warehouses suffer the most from the demand for faster delivery services. These warehouses send vehicles throughout the city that contribute to traffic in already overburdened neighborhoods and leave a trail of toxic diesel soot and smog-forming pollutants. Since the start of the pandemic, it is estimated that about 2.4 million packages are delivered in the city every day, and demand is only expected to grow in the future. Thus, traffic conditions are only going to worsen. Neighborhoods such as Sunset Park and Red Hook already suffer from congestion and pollution generated by fossil fuel using trucks and car trips. The rise in distribution centers has only exacerbated these issues as delivery vehicles move through our narrow roads, create unsafe pedestrian conditions, and lead to worse road conditions. The pandemic has made clear the particular vulnerabilities faced by environmental justice communities who have experienced higher rates of morbidity, with research indicating how death rates have been compounded by the impacts of poor area quality. Therefore, we must look for solutions to minimize vehicular traffic in neighborhoods across the city with poor air quality and high asthma rates. We encourage consideration of using rail and maritime transportation options. It is a critical part of the Freight NYC plan to invest in multimodal hubs by utilizing barge and railroads. These alternative modes of transportation will lead to reductions in truck trips, traffic congestions, and air pollution. Additionally, plans such as the Green Resilient Industrial District or GRID plan and the Waterfront Comprehensive Plan provide recommendations and solutions, not only for how we can utilize our harbors to transport goods, but also how to go about this process and address our climate and resiliency problems. While freight hauling is an important part of transportation, it creates environmental and health problems. As e-commerce continues to expand, transportation and environmental policy must address warehouse and logistics locations. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Going back to the panelist list, I have Morgan Monaco.
Morgan, did you want to add comment?
Morgan? Okay, I have Summer Sandoval next.
Thanks, Jeremy. Good evening, everyone. My name is Summer Sandoval, and I'm the Energy Democracy Coordinator at Uprose, Brooklyn's oldest Latino community-based organization. It's been in Sunset Park for over 55 years now. I want to give some comments building off of whatever has shared already. We all understanding that this is an environmental justice issue, especially in regards to the impacts of the size, density, and cumulative impacts of all of these facilities on the environment, health, economy, safety and transportation, traffic. And this is in addition, there was a previous comment to lifting up the existing conditions. This is in addition to existing polluting facilities such as multiple power plants, cement plants, solid waste transfer stations that are all in the community, in addition to the hundreds of thousands of trucks and cars that traverse the Gowanus Expressway and local streets on a daily basis. I want to take a step back and first talk a little bit about, as of right, this, we have over 130 people on this call tonight, so I want to make sure that, we're all under the same impression of the situation, and that going back to the root cause of why is this as of right, what does that mean? And so why are these facilities being able to basically pop up hundreds and thousands, millions of square feet without environmental review, without land use review? And the reason is whatever had shared before is that they're not defined. They're not defined in land use and zoning, therefore they're not limited or regulated or restricted any way. And so we're in this reactive situation right now where we have to really focus and develop two sets of strategies. One on the short-term mitigation that Eva has shared a lot about, and we're happy to share more in writing, short-term mitigation to ensure that the facilities, particularly ones that have already broken ground, involve community input and leadership in terms of their development to mitigate and reduce and eliminate many of these safety issues, concerns, and pollution. And then in addition to that, be creating long-term definitions and strategies to be able to regulate and enforce these facilities so that if they have to develop, they develop in a way that is in alignment with community priorities. There's already been mention of the comprehensive waterfront plan and the green resilient industrial plan, that outlines specifically calling for electric vehicles, clean transportation, and charging infrastructure, that also explicitly calls out the need to utilize marine, barge, rail transportation of e-commerce. I also want to throw in there the state level policy of the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act that calls for economy-wide reductions in emissions, and that we need to use all of our existing tools. Thank you. And really understand the scope, understand the scope of these facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Karen Broughton next.
Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
I'm good, Karen. Good to see you. Let's not eat into your time. We could talk tomorrow.
Yes, we can. I'm really short and quick. I just wanted to say I've listened to everything. I'm here to listen tonight as a community board member. And I just wanted to say that a lot of this is going to fall on legislation. Both communities, whether it's Red Hook or Sunset Park, you've got to sit down at a table with all of your elected officials, and you also have to have the agencies present, and the mayor should be involved in this, because in order to change the laws, in order to stop all of these last mile warehouses, you have to have everybody at the table. That's how laws are made, and that's how people are able to, you're able to tell and dictate what you want in your neighborhood. And also there has to be meetings where people are informed of what does last mile mean? What does as of right? Because a lot of people, it's said, but a lot of understanding doesn't go into it. So I'm just imploring people to just reach out to your elected officials and the agencies, and that needs to work with the community, and you can make your own rules if you go about it the right way. Legislation is the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie, I see no additional hands up. I know there are some questions and comments in the Q&A.
Great. And just to
I see another. Well, I'm not sure if it's a new hand up.
Okay.
Or folks are.
And I'll do, because I know there's kind of a bit of a rotation. So we just did some public comment. We're going to move to the presentations now from Department of City Planning and the Department of Transportation. They each have about 7 to 10 minute presentations. And then if we have any other representative speakers from the invited panelists, you can see their names on the list. And then we're going to go back to questions. So Jeremy, I would like to turn to Amy from Department of City Planning for her presentation.
Hi. Oh, can I have screen sharing abilities, please?
I'll take care of that, Amy.
Thank you.
And as we're setting that up, Amy from Department of City Planning is going to talk to us a little bit about some of these points that have been raised around these as of right, as prepared a presentation. And then again, as we said, DOT, and then we'll go to questions. So thanks, Amy.
Amy, you should be able to share your screen now.
All right. Give me 1 second. Great. Everyone can see my presentation? Cool. All right. So let me just move some stuff out of the way. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting us to this meeting tonight. My name is Amy Jin. I'm a borough planner in the Brooklyn office at the Department of City Planning. I'm joined tonight by a couple of my colleagues from the Brooklyn office and our transportation division at DCP. We're primarily here to listen in on the conversation, and we know that this is a conversation that will be ongoing. So we were asked to talk broadly about what DCP does. So what do we do, right? DCP conducts studies. We manage the public review process. We study population demographics. We make recommendations to the mayor and the council. We administer the zoning resolution, and we also act as community liaisons. So tonight we want to lay out at a very high level the different topics that are involved in planning and highlight the type of further outreach we can do. So here's a list of pertinent issues. It's by no means exhaustive, but it gives you a feel for the areas that we work in. To that end, we're invited tonight to give a very high level overview of zoning, which is what I will do now. This may be very basic for some of you, but hopefully informative for others. So what's zoning? Simply put, zoning regulates new building construction and defines what kind, how much, and where certain buildings can be built. This gives a level of predictability to property owners and neighbors, and as you may know, can change over time. Our city is divided into 3 basic zoning districts: residential, commercial, and manufacturing or industrial. This is done to group uses based on similarity and compatibility of their functions, which is for the overarching purpose of protecting public health, safety, and welfare of the users of the city. So how does this fit into planning? So first and foremost, zoning is not planning. It's simply one of the many tools of planning. Zoning also doesn't actually build anything. It simply outlines the rubric of what can be built. So to that end, we also have to remember that zoning is imperfect. A lot of today's zoning districts were designed in the 50s and reflects the specific thinking from that time period coming out of World War II. For example, many of our M districts have very low densities with very high parking requirements because we were trying to compete at the time with large horizontal industrial parks being built in the suburbs. Similarly, the city also created very specific performance standards for industrial districts that were meant to control things like heat, smells, noises, and even radiation. But these things may not be very relevant today because of changes in technology and standards, and we now have many city agencies that regulate these things through business permitting and building codes instead of zoning. And so how is zoning regulated? I mentioned before that DCP administers the zoning resolution. We study, we create, and we recommend zoning changes. Here we see some other city agencies that also deal with zoning. DOB, or the Department of Buildings, interprets and enforces zoning, while the BSA, the Board of Standards and Appeals, grants variances to zoning for hardship and unique sites. Development that follows current zoning and the building code is called as of right, which is something we've heard already in this meeting. These as of right developments go directly to DOB. Now, how can you look up zoning? We have a very helpful online tool called Zola that allows you to explore the city's different areas and look up the zoning for every property. There are helpful links when you click on each property that pops up in the right-hand panel here. And here I outlined in the blue outline. If you click on the zoning district, it takes you to another page that explains all of the different rules for that zoning district. You can also access other useful information such as building information, ownership, official zoning maps, and other data. Another really great online tool is the Population Fact Finder, where you can find census data for different geographies across the city and look at changes over time, as well as compare stats of a specific area to the city at large. There are also just a number of other tools available on our website that you can take a look at and play around with. So everything I just mentioned is just the tip of the iceberg. We want to be a time to listen to the community and for us to better understand the issues at hand and answer some questions where we can. We see this as the beginning of an ongoing conversation about planning broadly and how it affects the neighborhood. I didn't realize how difficult it is to talk about zoning at a high level until I was putting this presentation together. We typically do the zoning 101 things as an hour-long presentation. We're happy to talk more about different topics in the coming months and talk about what a plan looks like in a general sense and the kind of research that would need to go into one. As you may know, planning doesn't happen in a vacuum, and this is all very involved stuff that's really interconnected. I think Last Mile demonstrates this point very well, as it has a much larger reach on the ground, as well as involves multiple agencies, as we've mentioned throughout this meeting. And so that concludes my presentation for tonight. I'll hand it back over to Katie. Thank you.
We're going to go straight through to a presentation from DOT, and then we're going to have some time for comments and questions. But Amy, just the thing that you said is the Department of City Planning with these current facilities, these are as of right, and you have no interaction
Yes,
right now.
This is correct. They are as of right in manufacturing districts.
Okay, I'm going to go to, so if you have questions for DOT, we're going to come back to Amy. I'll go to DOT 2%.
Hi, yes, good afternoon. I would like to have screen sharing capabilities as well.
Give me 1 minute.
Is that, Denise, are you presenting?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, no problem. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Okay, Denise, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, excellent. Let us do that. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, or good evening, I should say, everyone. My name is Denise Mendez. I am the Director of Freight Mobility at New York City DOT. Our unit is responsible for advancing programs and policies that help to mitigate impacts as it relates to truck activity on communities and our infrastructure, while supporting economic competitiveness for a region, recognizing that freight movement is inextricably linked to the livability of our communities. So we've heard a lot of conversation so far, and I really want to thank all of the folks who have participated in providing commentary, particularly as it relates to your community. We are happy to be here and share some of our insights, but also talk about our programs and plans that have been laid out to help manage freight activity over the next 5 to 10 years and beyond that. So e-commerce and last mile distribution has certainly created a lot of conversation and also concerns throughout the city, but also nationally and internationally. Consumers are expecting faster delivery times for online goods. That's not a surprise. Just-in-time delivery just isn't fast enough. What that has meant is that we have seen a reversing trend of logistics and fulfillment centers being located within city limits. Oftentimes, these are as of right development. And a lot of these companies or developers are oftentimes coming in to help to reduce truck vehicle miles traveled, improve supply chain efficiencies, and support economic development. However, DOT has limited visibility into these developments and our limited ability to anticipate the local impacts in advance. As Amy mentioned, there's a process where the as of right developments go to the Department of Buildings. In the event there is a curb cut waiver that is sent over, request that is sent over to DOT, where we are able to review that process, but it is a very limited process. So I just really want to make sure that we're underscoring kind of where we are getting involved in the process. We are typically very forward in terms of coordinating traffic and safety related impacts. from the curb cut review process, but it's very limited. DOT has been in contact with relevant agencies, and we certainly work with Department of City Planning and the New York City Economic Development Corporation around these growing concerns, and we're committed to working together. I know, so there were also other questions that about last mile and what that is. The last mile delivery is really defined as the last leg of delivery from the transportation hub to the final delivery destination. So we are committed to looking at ways to transform the last leg of the supply chain, recognizing that there's a strong need for multimodal and sustainable freight supply within the New York City region. That means reducing our over-reliance on trucks to move throughout the region and better managing the trucks that do remain. We recognize that 90% of trucks operate in the city for making deliveries in the last mile, and that is certainly not sustainable over the next 20 odd years. We want to continue to diversify the last mile in terms of our freight modes, and certainly we have had programs to advance that over the last 2 years. Continue to promote freight efficiency and sustainability and supporting economic development. Which brings us to our Delivery New York plan. And I know based on the recording from the last plan, there were a lot of, the last meeting, there were a lot of questions about our smart truck management plan. It's a long awaited plan that was released back in May. The effort here is to establish safer and greener and smarter truck management and routing. We've heard a lot of concerns, particularly in Red Hook community, but also in Sunset Park and other parts of the city around this. And we're committed to evaluating, the routing and looking at opportunities to reduce impacts on our communities as well as our infrastructure. The plan also identifies innovative and sustainable demand management strategies and also introduces new concepts, which we're really proud of, like our Cargo Bikes pilot program, our retiming off-hour deliveries program, and other enhanced curb management strategies. It also outlines policies that moves away from dirtier polluting trucks to cleaner, more advanced technologies in transportation elements in terms of more truck electrification and also policies for cleaner trucks or alternative fuel trucks. The plan is anchored by 4 key goals: safety, sustainability, efficiency, and partnerships. And that is a critical part for us, particularly as the freight sector is a private sector operating on mostly public infrastructure. So we do see a great opportunity in leveraging partnerships with the industry. This is just a quick snapshot of DOT's freight toolkit. It ranges from demand management programs to specific improvements on our streets, to signage and wayfinding, coordination with NYPD as it relates to enforcement, and more innovative programs like our Cargo Bike pilot program, which has grown substantially, particularly during the pandemic. New York City's Clean Truck program is a very successful program that started off in the Hunts Point area, but it's now expanding to industrial business zones citywide. South Brooklyn is an eligible industrial business zone, and we are working very closely with the South Brooklyn Industrial Development Corporation to engage businesses across South Brooklyn and Red Hook to participate in this program and take advantage of that. The incentives range from $12,000 to $185,000 to replace dirtier trucks with alternative fuel trucks or even electric trucks. So we are very well on our way to advancing a lot of these initiatives to help, particularly on the environmental justice concerns as well that has been raised earlier. And more broadly, DOT has a very deep bench as it relates to our safety improvements and where we come into play. We can certainly drive and think about how we can leverage some of our toolkit to make the routes that trucks are traveling on safer, as well as for the vulnerable road users that are navigating our streets. So this concludes the presentation on DOT's end. I will hand it back to you, Katie, for Q&A, and we welcome feedback from the community as well. This again is our first start, and we're continuing to be here and also to engage with the community and provide more proactive solutions as we move forward.
Thank you. And just to something I heard you say, that you referenced Amy's presentation from DCP, is that as these are as of right facilities that DOT doesn't have the ability to control or change these last mile e-commerce facilities, and what you've shared with us today around incentives and incentive programs. Is that correct? Am I characterizing that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So thank you. We have, I'm going to go back to sharing my agenda, and I'm just going to ask, we had a couple of folks who are from elected offices who are here, and there also might be some other electeds themselves who've joined us. So what I'll do is just go through if there's any additional comments or questions that you also wanted to provide to us. Ask you to think about 3 minutes, because then we want to get to Q&A. So can I start out with Congressperson Nydia Velasquez's office? Do we have Dan? I believe Dan Wiley was coming tonight.
Yeah, hi. So yeah, I just want to be clear. We've been concerned about the last mile delivery e-commerce facilities that have been popping up since Thanksgiving. We've noticed, and the the businesses and the corporations don't come to us saying, "Hey, this is what we're going to do." It's more like you find out. The example of UPS, it took community people to figure out that UPS was the one behind starting demolition of buildings just south of Atlantic Basin, what was going to be a state 4. And, we jumped into action when we found out it was UPS and engaged with corporate to try to get them to stop the demolition and talk with the community. And in the end of the day, we were able to save the Ligerwood building, but we did save a bit of the facade. Now UPS has stepped back and has put its properties up to market, even though it's been clearing the sites for some kind of development of an operation. Since then, we learned about Amazon, and I just want to point out, as of right means that these sites can be built in these manufacturing zones without any permits or permissions. So they don't have to go to anyone for permission to build, because they can do it. They have the right to build it according to the city code. In the case of Amazon itself is not building, but you have Dove Hertz and Thor Equities on Beard Street at the end of Columbia and over Beard Street on Richards, and they're building for the corporations. Who knows, maybe UPS wants to do the same thing, not build themselves, have someone else build for them, or sell it to someone else who's going to build. So having 5 of these sites clustered within a mile of each other in Red Hook, plus another across the way that Dove Hertz has at Sunset Industrial Park, which is where FedEx is going to be, is quite an impact. So I just wanted to echo what a lot of people have said. The key is it's an environmental justice community. It's a health service shortage area. You have a shortage of services, and you have a lot of impacts that are going to happen. So how do you reduce those impacts, and also create a situation where corporations actually have to do something proactive, as opposed to just participate in an incentive program, which is hard without the community being united. So I thank the community boards and all the activists who have come together to put this together and hear what we can do.
Thank you, Dan. And I'm just going to go through this list, and it's been brought to my attention as well. I think we have EDC who's here, and I believe the Brooklyn Borough President's Office. So I'll consider them. They were invited as panelists, but I'll get through this list. Turn to Senator Brisport.
Yeah, thank you, Katie, and thank you, everyone, both our presenters and also people from the community that had a chance to speak up. It was really great for me to hear all the concerns ranging from pollution to congestion to pedestrian safety, especially for students, to job access for local jobs, for local residents. So my office is happy to collaborate with, local departments. It was great to see some of the proposals to enact traffic calming measures for pedestrian safety, or, measures for greener vehicle fleets or electric vehicles. And I'm happy to help out however I can. In terms of the congestion, the number of vehicles on the street, and jobs. Well, I guess, EDC is here. So my office is happy to help out however we can in those regards as well. And again, I want to thank CB6 and CB7 for doing this joint meeting, and looking forward to finding solutions that keep bringing us together, and ensure that we have healthy standards of living in our communities, especially areas like Red Hook and Sunset Park, which are low income and Black and brown and working class. Thank you.
Thanks. And we still have another whole section of the meeting where we're going to come back to Q&A and public comment. So I hope, thanks everyone for being here and being able to be available for questions. I'll go to Assemblymember Mantegna's office. I think we have a couple of representatives who might be here. So
I can start it off. Thank you so much, Katie, CB6 and CB7 for convening this meeting. I will kick it over to my colleagues after this, but our office is very much interested in pursuing legislative interventions and working with others here, whether you're a community member, whether you're a city agency, whether you are a legislator. We're interested in interventions that would halt the further proliferation of any of these facilities in Red Hook, and also mitigate the impact of existing facilities that are already built. However, we are also interested in addressing this as a structural issue that are faced by many working class or low income communities statewide. We are interested in this as an issue that contributes to the further exploitation and devaluation of such communities under capitalism. The reason we want to take a broad approach here, or interested in taking a broad approach here, is because, as John Santori said, this is a very big issue that is not going to just affect Red Hook, and it's not going to be something that we're facing for just the next few years. This is going to be game changing. It is going to be something we face over the next few decades. It is going to be statewide. It is going to be nationwide. In addition, we're interested in taking a broader approach because that will be politically necessary. We need to link working class communities from all different neighborhoods within New York State in order to actually get legislation passed at the state level. I want to talk a little bit about some approaches that our team has been looking into. There's roughly about 5 that we're currently evaluating, and interested in hearing from community members if they feel strongly for one or the other, or against one or the other. The first is regulating emissions, so building very much on the work of the CLCPA that was passed in 2019 to give the state further authority over emissions that are happening at facilities such as Red Hook. The second is regulating air quality. So under DEC guidelines, Red Hook is not currently an air quality monitoring area. We are interested in both pursuing with DEC the process of making it such an area, and also potentially legislating for it to be an air quality monitoring area. We're very much interested also in building upon the work that is being done by the environmental stewards at Red Hook Initiative, who are installing air monitors in this neighborhood. The third approach we're interested in exploring is one around transparency, requiring that companies coming to this area and engaging in this use are required to disclose their plans around hiring numbers, around number of trucks, around anticipated emissions to the community and to entities such as this community board. The fourth potential legislative approach that we're interested in pursuing is something around proportionality, which would mandate that those communities who are making use of such facilities or benefiting from such facilities, engaging in kind of e-commerce, the most actually bear the most of the brunt of the impacts, as opposed to what we're seeing in Red Hook. And the fifth approach, I will wrap up, is actually just a moratorium, so something more urgent statewide. And so we're interested in working with other elected officials here, other offices, recognizing that, the state only has a piece of the puzzle. There needs to be a city response, whether from an elected official or city agencies. We need to intervene in the special permitting process. We need to intervene in zoning. We need to intervene in routing, as well as traffic. And those main responsibilities kind
Thank
of
you.
lie at the city level. So
Thank
thank
you.
you. We're interested in working with all of you.
Jenny, was there anyone else from the Assembly Member's Office that wanted to speak?
Yeah, I want to kick it over to Emmett or David from my team who might have something to add.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Catherine, and everyone here from the Community Board 6 and 7 for organizing this. As just reiterating what my colleague Jenny here said, is that we really want to center the voice of those who are being directly impacted by what's going to be coming out of this last mile trucking facilities, and that's specifically, to be more specific, communities that have for a long time been bearing the brunt of systemic and environmental injustices in our communities, not only here in Red Hook, but also across the city. Similar to what's going on here, we've seen take place in Hunts Point in the Bronx. And we want to make sure that all of our understanding when we analyze this and when we advocate for specific policies from our end is making sure that we're centering these voices. And this particularly is including folks who live in the Red Hook houses in both East and West campuses. Earlier today, we met a group of students who belong to the Summer Environmental Justice Program, and they were able to give us a quick introduction onto what they were doing, introducing like their research to a group of college students who are former college students who are also investigating the impacts of this what's going to come out from these trucking facilities. They want to continue to have these kind of relationships with all members of the community. If you're interested in collaborating or talking to us, addressing your concerns, or maybe helping us in understanding what's going to happen here, and maybe also advise us on what we should do, please don't be afraid to reach out to me or Jenny or David Sosa from our office. We really want to engage in here, but we also want to make sure that we're able to be as accountable to everyone as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmett. Dave Sosa, or we'll go on. Jenny or Emmett, does Dave want to go?
I think we can move on.
Okay, yeah, okay. I'll just go back to Councilmember Carlos Menchaca's office. We have a representative from Brad Lander. We did earlier hear from Uprose. If there was anyone who didn't have a chance to go, I think Nicole, and then again, acknowledging EDC and the Borough President's office is here. And then we want to get to our Q&A questions, the community board and the public. Carlos Menchaca? Anything else you wanted to add?
No, Katie, we're taking notes, and I think I really want to hear more from folks. I think that what we're hearing today is a groundswell of support. We're going to need all of that to construct something that's going to alert the rest of the time that this mayor is in power. Still is time, and I don't want to have to wait for the next administration to come on board. So this is all good, and I'm hoping that we stay united. That's it for me.
Thank you. Is there a rep from Councilmember Brad Lander's office? There is? Okay. I can't see who it is, so Jeremy, I can just see your head.
I saw Fauzia here earlier. Okay. Is she still here? Perhaps she wasn't able to stay. Oh, wait, let me just check attendees.
Okay.
I don't see her.
We don't see her. Okay, so I'll go to Uprose. I think Nicole.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so my name is Nicole Hernandez Hammer. I'm a biologist and I serve as the community environmental scientist for Uprose. At Uprose, we work at the intersection of racial justice and climate change. Sunset Park is a frontline community that lives with many polluting infrastructures and a growing number of climate change impacts, including more intense heat and more intense storms. For decades, Uprose has worked tirelessly to pass legislation like the CLCPA, develop renewable energy, fight peaker power plants, reduce the number of diesel trucks, create accessible green space, work with small businesses, and support community-based planning. It is because of our deep and longstanding commitment to environmental justice and to serving our community that we stand in strong opposition to the plan for last mile facilities. It's well known that last mile facilities of this kind bring a multitude of negative health and economic impacts to frontline communities and contribute significantly to global climate change. In Sunset Park, we already are dealing with the disproportionate burden of toxic pollution emitted by 18-wheelers. This kind of traffic pollution contributes to high levels of asthma, reproductive defects, impaired neurodevelopment in children, increased chronic disease such as cardiovascular disease, and other devastating health impacts. An idling vehicle releases harmful chemicals, gases, and particle pollution into the air, contributing to ozone, regional haze, and climate change. Every gallon of gas burned produces more than 20 pounds of greenhouse gases. Typically, a long-haul truck idles about 1,800 hours per year. Idling a heavy-duty truck consumes about 0.8 gallons of fuel per hour. Poor air quality has positioned working class communities of color to bear the disproportionate impacts of COVID-19. A recent Harvard study found that people with COVID-19 living in communities with high levels of air pollution are more likely to die from the virus. Additionally, there are community concerns regarding longstanding issues with pedestrian and cyclist safety. There's a pattern of unsafe conditions on 3rd Avenue with multiple pedestrian fatalities occurring every year, making Sunset Park one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the city. Increasing traffic will very likely increase the number of lives lost on our roads. There's clear consensus among climate change scientists that over the coming decades, there will be more intense storms like Superstorm Sandy. This was evidenced in the most recent hurricane season that set records for its number of more intense storms. It's not a matter of if, but when we'll see another storm like Sandy. Roadway congestion adds a layer of difficulty and vulnerability during storm evacuation events. There is no clear storm or sea level rise mitigation plan for the proposed facilities, along with a lack of information on the details of trucking, materials back and forth, a lack of information on the use of waterborne or rail, and as we understand it, no requirements for electric trucks, vans, cars, or bikes. The plans are out of step with the CLCPA and the Comprehensive Waterfront Plan, as my colleagues mentioned earlier. When it comes to the impact of e-commerce and last mile facilities, we need enforceable rules and regulations put in place to protect communities, and those protections must be developed through a community-led process. Thank you for holding this meeting and for the opportunity to provide the comments.
Thank you, Nicole. I'd like to go to, sorry, they're not on the list, but they had RSVP'd. EDC, is Andrew going to speak?
Yeah, I'll start. Hey, it's Ratty. Again, thank you, CB6 and CB7 for inviting us to this meeting today. And this is certainly something that we've, been connected on in the past, and have also heard from the Borough President's Office. Also appreciate Nydia Velasquez and Carlos Menchaca's leadership and, just bringing us together about a month ago and walking through and seeing kind of how some of the issues intersect. So first and foremost, just thank you. My name is Ratty. I'm with the Government Community Relations team here. I am going to hand it off to Andrew Genn, who leads our transportation team here at EDC, and is going to talk a little bit about some of the ways some of the things that we're doing at EDC to just discourage, ongoing truck traffic and try to get folks to utilize either our waterways or other things. And these are all things that we are very much in conjunction with our sister agencies, DOT, DCP, and others. But Andrew, if you want to talk a little bit about those.
Right. Thanks, Ratty. It's great to be here. Nice to see everyone. And, the heart of Freight NYC that we released a couple of years ago was the concept of reducing trucking and increasing the amount of waterborne and rail-borne freight coming into and out of the city. And, to that end, we, have been working with, partners like the Port Authority, but more importantly, with some of the local businesses that, we're lucky to have, in areas like Sunset Park and Red Hook. And, to that end, really focusing on concepts like Marine Highway. We convened a regional coalition to study that issue, as well as, working with folks in New Jersey who really want to see a better system of moving goods into and out of New York. So, I think that, is one of the, the real, benefits of having the port facilities, Red Hook, Sunset Park, but also some of the smaller terminals. And, we continue to, seek ways, to move more freight by water. One of the ways was the release of the the Dock NYC RFEI, which identified docking areas throughout the city that are controlled by EDC and that companies can use to move freight. And, the good side of that is that I'd say we've seen over half a dozen, companies come forward saying that they would like to explore. I've seen in the chat, companies like Harbor Harvest that Carlina, I think, mentioned, they're definitely in the mix, but also our terminal operator in Red Hook, has been leading efforts to use Red Hook for some of the freight that we're discussing here, as well as the companies related to Buchanan Marine, but also Hughes Marine in Erie Basin. And I think, there's a great opportunity. So, and just in conclusion, just to say that, we're very closely connected with DOT. They're doing the last mile, we're doing kind of the middle mile, and we'll continue, to partner with them and work with these committees to advance a lot of the concepts that are being discussed today. So thank you.
And thanks, Andrew. Just as a EDC, do you have control over as of right facilities like these last mile e-commerce trucking facilities?
We do not, Katie. We do not.
Okay. So you've talked a little bit about incentives. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure Uprose, we heard from Eva, Nicole, and Summer. Was I missing anyone else from Uprose? Okay, if not, then we'll go to the Brooklyn Borough President's Office. Might need your help, Jeremy, on identifying who's there.
So you gave me Ryan's name. I do not see Ryan. It's possible he's here as one of these phone numbers, but I'd never be able to tell. So Ryan, raise your hand if you're on your phone. Doesn't appear so.
Okay. All right, we'll make sure we get them. And we're just about to go to the questions and comments, but I just want to, that we can go back and address our electeds. We can go back and address our agencies that have presented. Again, these are some folks who were invited to the CB6, CB7 meeting we didn't hear back from and send regrets. And so again, when we have another meeting in terms of getting some folks with us here. So, Jeremy, do we have any other? I don't think I see anybody else. I'm going to just go ahead. So we're going to go back to this next section, which is questions and public comments. So we're going to go to the community board members, Community Board 6, Community Board 7. Again, be mindful of your 3 minutes, pose a question, but make a comment, but just, keep it 3 minutes. And then we're going to go to the public. So you can raise your hand, and Jeremy, can you help me with this part?
Yeah, absolutely. I have Karen Blondell first.
Great, thank you. And let us know who you're addressing the question to.
I'm not the community board, but I do want to address EDC. When EDC just spoke about being the middle transportation, that sounds to me as transportation coming in. So, that didn't, to me, it raises a flag that EDC is not understanding what the community is saying. We're not talking about an issue with marine commerce coming in because we have the Port Authority here, we have the Red Hook Container Terminal, etc. We're talking about how does the product get from Red Hook out of the neighborhood, EDC, and you did not address that. So I just wanted to make that comment to EDC. And I wanted to thank every single person who emphasized the points about enforcement and about air quality. And I also want to say to the resident who spoke about his grandmother having difficulty breathing, nobody else said condolences to you, but I am giving my condolences to you. Sorry for your loss, and thank you for participating in this panel. Thank you.
I have Robert Levine next.
Directed to DOT. And I just want to use an example I spoke earlier about the traffic coming through Park Slope, Prospect Park West, 8th Avenue, 7th Avenue, 9th Street. When we had two children killed a couple of years ago on 5th Avenue, 9th Street, there was a big uproar about traffic and the use of the streets. We got out of it, bike lanes on 9th Street, but we did not get what we were promised from the council member's office, which was a traffic study. And I'm wondering, in terms of the question, is when is that ever going to be done? It just seems that the only traffic changes that have been made in the past several years in Brooklyn were around, in this area, at least this half of Brooklyn, but things around Atlantic Yards to make traffic go smoothly around that. And that was amazing how all of a sudden these no left turns, no right turns, things like that were put into place on Flatbush Avenue, on Atlantic Avenue, around 3rd Avenue, to the point where traffic cannot make turns. Trucks cannot get to 3rd Avenue and 4th Avenue to get into Red Hook. They have to be funneled into 1 or 2 streets. And there really needs a comprehensive traffic look at all of those areas. Right now, traffic coming from the asphalt plant on Hamilton Avenue and the solid waste transfer station on Hamilton Avenue really have no choices but to come up through Park Slope, through Grand Army Plaza, through Eastern Parkway, going through central Brooklyn to get to wherever they're going or coming back from there. There's got to be a more comprehensive look. Thank you.
Robert, I heard a question in there. You're asking DOT about a traffic study for Red Hook. Do you want to, is that the question? Okay, I think there was a question to DOT. Is a traffic study for Red Hook that was committed to? Do you want to reply?
This is Keith Bray from DOT. There was not, as part of the, actually said the councilman's office, but DOT did not commit after those changes to 9th Street to a traffic study at Red Hook. However, we are happy to look into that and speak to the community board 6 about a possible study there and have further conversations about it. So that is something we're willing and happy to do. And as far as 9th Street bike lane project in particular, we do have after action information on that project, so we can share that with the board as well if they want to know about it, and we can send that to you to know about the safety improvements that happened after the bike lane was installed.
My comment wasn't anything about the bike lanes, it's just that that's when it was done, and we're thinking in Thailand. They're running fairly good. Just that there's got to be a way to get the sanitation trucks, the big asphalt trucks that come out of the plants every single day, looked at and not going through Brooklyn the way they're going now.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm just going to ask community, sorry, I'm getting some echo. Community board members to pose a question, then we can get to the public as well. We've still got over 100 folks on the line. Some folks are waiting. So if we have any other hands up.
I have Eric McClure next.
My question, I think it's for all the city folks, but maybe Department of City Planning would be the right people to answer it. So right now we have at least 4 facilities in different stages of development in Red Hook alone. I'm wondering what the status of the conversation among city agencies and within the Department of City Planning is as far as zoning changes that would be necessary to start managing the advent of these facilities and their ability to execute as of right in close proximity to each other, with the potential to overwhelm a neighborhood like Red Hook with small, narrow streets, a lot of them cobblestone. So where are we in terms of the conversation within the administration on how to address the situation?
Do you want to direct that to a certain agency first?
I mean, it might, city planning is probably the most appropriate for beginning that answer anyway.
Okay, thanks.
So I'm Winston Von Engon, the director of the Brooklyn office of city planning. And just in response to that question is that, you know, together with Amy and with Jonah Roga, we're truly are happy and to be here with you together with our colleagues at DOT and at EDC, and we're listening and hearing what you have to say. We are also obviously continually looking out and seeing what is going on the ground. We're working with our partners at DOT and EDC to look into these concerns. But in the meantime, before we jump to solutions, we first need to understand your concerns and what the issues are. So looking forward to listening more of the comments that are being presented today, and also happy to answer any other technical questions.
Katie, if I could just follow up. Winston, with all due respect, these facilities have been in development for a while and are no secret, and their impact, the potential impact across the city is pretty significant. So it seems like this should be something that the Department of City Planning and other agencies should have been working on for quite a while at this point. And you know, we're happy to consult with all of you, but it seems like the horse has left the barn a little bit here.
I have Hildegard Link next.
Hi, this is a question for the Department of Transportation, Denise Mendez. Excellent listening to your presentation, Denise. Go CUNY engineers. Your talk was entirely, unless I missed something, focused on trucks, which I found a little discouraging. Does Department of Transportation have no agency over marine transport? Is this not your area of expertise? Is it not your area of interest? Or is it just something that hasn't come up yet?
Thank you, Hildegard, for your question, and also go CCNY. We are certainly working very closely with the Economic Development Corporation. I think there's some shared responsibilities here where you know, we can look at opportunities to incentivize maritime through our landings and other things. So that is something that we are exploring and working very closely with EDC on, particularly for the Dock NYC initiative, and also finding opportunities to incentivize more maritime activity. I think that we certainly want to see some of that activity happening in areas like Red Hook and Hunts Point and other areas that can certainly access the waterfront. There are other considerations that we need to take into account, and we're looking at that very closely.
Thank you.
Nick Azadian.
I have one comment and a number of questions. My first comment is directed to Jenny Zhang. Please remember that you also serve Sunset Park. And in all of the comments made by your office, it was always directed to Red Hook. This neighborhood is also going to be very much affected by this. And please do not forget this, considering that you do have most of your constituents who live in this neighborhood as well. My questions for DOT are, when will traffic studies be done? Because this community board has been asking for them for the better part of at least 3 years, and we have gotten nothing but, absolutely nothing actually, not even platitudes for the traffic studies for both all of these particular locations that are going to be, you know, basically put into commission. And we, you know, there hasn't been any sort of, you know, feedback from the DOT how this additional traffic is going to be handled in both Sunset Park and Red Hook, period. And this is not the first time we have asked, and largely speaking, every time we have been asked, we've been brushed off, or the DOT has sought other ways to avoid answering this question. So I would like to know now, when will those studies be done?
So is Keith gonna respond?
Yep,
Or,
this is
oh,
Keith,
okay,
yep,
great.
this is Keith Bray from the Brooklyn office of DOT. So currently, Nick, as I just said to Ms. Levine and CB6, we don't have a particular study in place at the moment about these facilities and their impact on CB6 and 7, but we want to work with the community and the other agencies here to talk about what the study would look like. What are you thinking about? Concerns you have? We've heard a lot of the day. We obviously took a lot of notes over the last hour and a half. And then we have to work with you and elected officials and others to see if we can move forward on that study. So that is our plan. And like I said, as you said before tonight, this is the beginning stage of that process and looking at these facilities.
No, this is not the beginning stage of this process. We have asked repeatedly, this community board has asked for 2 years about a truck study along 3rd Avenue. So if this is beginning now, that means you have completely disregarded any of the requests from anybody involved in this process. So either you were asleep at the wheel or were willingly neglecting this entire process. So I will not accept that. Again, I will ask, when will this traffic study be done?
I've given an answer to the question, to what was the question in that remark. I've given the answer to that. And I'll say again, on 3rd Avenue, obviously, the truck, as I said again, we will look into this and we'll get back to CP7 on that.
Katie, can I respond to the comment directed? Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. That's Jenny, right? So Keith, has there been an effort undertaken on the 3rd Avenue truck study for DOT?
I don't, so when you say 3rd Avenue truck study, when we've looked at 3rd Avenue, we've looked at safety improvements there. And those are some things that we have done. We have, again, not performed a truck study on 3rd Avenue yet. What we have looked at as an agency, as sort of Denise talked about earlier, is an overall citywide smart truck management plan where 3rd Avenue is a part of that plan, and strategies we plan to implement citywide would have an impact on 3rd Avenue. So that is all encompassed within 3rd Avenue, is encompassed part of that larger citywide study. So that's what has been done, and that's what we're going to look at. Now the plan has been announced. Now some strategies from that plan we will look to implement, and they will have some impacts on 3rd Avenue.
Okay, there might be other community board members or the public who might follow up on that. But I do want to give Jenny a chance to respond since the Assembly Member's Office was acknowledged in the last comments. Go to Jenny.
Yeah, Nick, if you were listening to my comments, I had said that we are interested in addressing this as a broader issue that is not just faced by Red Hook. Our office is very aware that there are facilities planned coming to Sunset Park as well, let alone outside of our district around the state. So I think you had mischaracterized what I was saying.
I have Jerry Armour next.
Okay, I think I've unmuted myself. Nick, thank you for asking the question. I was about to ask about truck study. We've been asking for one once we learned about the last mile warehouses in Red Hook and Sunset Park. So I will skip that question. However, one of the things I heard tonight, and one of the things I know from past experiences, any change to the zoning would take an inordinate amount of time. And during that time, we could have more of these last mile warehouses placed in Sunset Park and Red Hook. I also heard from one of our elected officials about the idea of a moratorium. It seems to me that that's one way to go until we get a zoning study and the zoning text to be written and to be approved would be a moratorium to prevent anything more, and not just in Red Hook and Sunset Park, but in other areas of the city. There are parts of Queens where this same thing is happening. So I think that that's something we have to look at with our elected officials, with our city elected officials, is putting in place a moratorium. And my last comment is very simple. In everything that we've heard from DOT's presentation, I heard very little about public safety, people on pedestrians, bicyclists, and anybody who's on the street. And it seems to me that we're losing sight of this very simple thing. A pedestrian has to cross the street. And with all of these trucks, it would become nearly impossible. And as chair of the CB6 Public Safety Committee, yes, we can do enforcement. Yes, we can get the police to enforce, but they need rules. They need laws. They need regulations. They need to be updated. Right now, we're dealing with antiquated rules and antiquated regulations, forgetting about the truck traffic, forgetting about truck routes for a moment, which are also antiquated. And just one aside for myself, I go back a long time on CB6, and when IKEA was looked at the first time, one of the conditions was for them to do a study, and Dan Wiley will back me up, to do a study on bringing in all of their stuff that they sell via barge. They're right on the water. It makes perfect sense. And so are the two Amazon warehouses. Thank you.
I have Alexa Aviles next.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. Thank you so much for this meeting. Thank you to the residents and the electeds and everyone who has remained over this time. I guess I have a comment followed by a question. What I have heard throughout the comments from the city agencies and the electeds is that it seems that no agency has responsibility or will take any responsibility for this incredible problem that we are facing. I hear that no, the agencies are not coordinating. I am deeply disturbed that any agency, whether it's Department of Buildings or DCP, would allow 5 of these facilities and never it trigger the fact that it is a well-known fact that all the industrial manufacturing sites across the city are in environmental justice communities who suffer inordinate burdens of polluting infrastructure would not have flagged immediately that this is a tremendous problem. And we have to find a way that equity is inserted into every stage of any process related to economic development, related to siting of any facility. The Department of Buildings apparently is the only agency, right, who would actually be handling these applications, and yet they are never part of these kinds of discussions. So we have an enormous amount of work to do ahead to be proactive. I am in full favor of a moratorium. I think what we are facing is an utter disgrace and problem. And we have to do better and we have to be more proactive. We need mechanisms in place to trigger this kind of development that would have this enormous collective impact, a destructive impact in our community, not after it's built, but when it's even proposed. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, the question that I heard from Lex is around, do the agencies that presented today have responsibility and accountability for these facilities? And if they're aware of any other agencies who do, can I just ask that question again? DCP, do you have any triggering mechanisms for these facilities? Amy?
So I guess we do have responsibility over them, and that's accounted for through zoning. And so these facilities aren't permitted in every district. They are only permitted in manufacturing districts.
Amy, with due respect, when the code doesn't even define the type of facility that it is, would that not trigger a deeper review from the agency? Does the agency simply allow just any facility maybe that it thinks fits to do what it wants in a community in this concentrated fashion?
I'm not sure I can answer this question completely. Maybe Winston can help. Winston, we can't hear you. see you talking. Sorry, give us a second.
I can chime in if.
Sure.
Winston, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Yeah, if you just wanted
Okay.
to respond to that question. Thank you.
Sure. I was going to say that distribution centers are warehouses. And as such, they're an industrial use, and they're allowed in manufacturing industrial zoned districts, right? And so as such, they're allowed to occur. Warehouses are used by all kinds of businesses in New York City to store their goods that they either produce or distribute throughout the city.
Winston, my understanding from Eva is that these are not ordinary warehouses. And what we've seen in other states, these are not ordinary warehouses. They're significantly larger. And is there no collective impact that is looked at when you have 5 of these enormous facilities concentrated already in an environmental justice community? And how does one account for, do the agencies coordinate in assessing the collective impact of these kind of facilities in one small community? And that's even in Sunset Park as well.
So as I said earlier, we do talk and coordinate continuously with our other partner agencies, including DOT. And obviously, we also rely on local communities to alert us to problems or issues or concerns that they have. And as such, we've started to look into what is taking place here in Red Hook, in Sunset Park, and other places. It's not an issue that's isolated here, and it's not the first distribution facility that exists in New York City. So as such, we are talking to each other. We do that continuously.
With all due respect, there are 5 of these facilities in a small neighborhood that is an environmental justice neighborhood where the health impacts are clear. What was the assessment that an additional 1,000 trucks a day on the impacts of the health of the community and the infrastructure? Was it found that it was just not significant enough to merit additional concern? Because it seems like it's been ignored, and we're asking for the community to tell us the impacts now after these facilities are in process of development.
So I would, as you know, or may know, and if you don't, the zoning here has been in place since 1961 and is a reflection of the industrial and manufacturing uses that used to exist here. And the zoning actually allows for those uses that used to exist here, as well as these warehouse uses. There is no, there is no environmental review necessary for uses that are allowed in the zoning. That being said, we are of course very aware and concerned whenever public health is involved. And we do look into issues and concerns like this to try and address them when they become acute. But we should also keep in mind that we don't want to make sure that also that uses that we do want are not excluded inadvertently. And so we would have to look at these areas a little bit more carefully.
And Alexa, if it's okay, we're going to continue on with community board
apologies, absolutely.
members. But the zoning presentation from earlier showing that these are as of right under the current zoning, which allows them even in aggregation to proceed. But so I think there's going to be other people who are going to be asking some follow-ups. Jeremy, again, thank you so much for your help to ask about additional.
No problem. I've got a couple more. Just a reminder to folks, this meeting is currently live on YouTube at the CB7, Brooklyn CB7 YouTube channel. And you could always view it after this meeting. It will always be available. I have John DeLuper next.
All right. Good. Thank you for your time. I do want to say I'm hearing a lot of conversation today about the different issues that are coming here and different things, especially truck pollution and things like this. So hearing that the different agencies don't have so many enforcement mechanisms, but there might be other ways that they can do that. Do any agency members or electeds have any updates on how people are going to how it will be, how we can take other actions like encouraging mode share. So for instance, 53-foot trailers, almost always illegal everywhere in New York City. There's an open data set. You can look at the number of permits issued in these districts, and it's just a handful. Other cities in the rest of the world barely have any tractor trailer trucks. They've been able to get everyone into box trucks or into vans, or even into delivery on cargo bikes and other stuff like that. I know in New York City, we have been trying stuff like that. I saw in Manhattan, there's been some kind of pilot with getting food deliveries and stuff onto e-bikes, and I have seen a few of them around here. Is there anything we can do to encourage people to do that, as well as to try to get the increased emphasis on rail and water transport, as was mentioned before?
Is there a certain elected official you wanted to address that to? Or, oh, that was Denise. Yeah, DOT, thanks.
Yeah, I will address part of that that's related to the work that we're doing. So the Cargo Bike Pilot Program, which we launched back in December of 2019, we are certainly growing, and we've tripled the number of operating cargo bikes. We launched the program with 100 cargo bikes. Now we're the largest in the nation at 350 cargo bikes. We're working with Amazon, FedEx, UPS, DHL, a lot of the bigger folks to incentivize that. Based on the results of the pilot, we are working to put in rules to formalize how cargo bikes can operate in our city, and also opportunities to incentivize the use of those, and also working in concert with EDC to find out opportunities for intermodal shift where we can do barge to cargo bike. So I think that those are all elements that we've anchored in our freight plan, and we're continuing to work on the implementation of that.
Thank you.
I have Van Krishnamurthy next.
Hey, I'm a board member of CB6. A comment and then kind of a question to, I'm not sure the right person, but a couple of comments on the public safety with these trucks. I'd be careful citing trucks as more dangerous than cars and bikes. As someone with a visual impairment, I actually find cars and cyclists more of a threat to me than the bigger vehicles. So I'm an anecdote. I know I haven't done any studies to say that this is generalizable to the wider community with disabilities, but I'm not sure that trucks are actually more dangerous. That's something you'd have to probably study better. And then the general question out there to whoever is the right person is, and it's a little based on my usage. So last mile is very important to me, and actually to many people with disabilities, because we were able to have things delivered to us, including groceries, for spaces that are not navigable or easy to navigate if you have a disability, like a grocery store. So is there any kind of discussion or brainstorming around saying companies that build these last mile facilities, if they can use some portion or give back to the community to make last mile deliveries more economic to those neighborhoods? I'm clearly privileged, so I can afford to get Whole Foods deliveries and so on. But maybe we could take a page from countries like India, where companies are actually required to do 1% or 2% of their top line or bottom line to community development. And maybe we can say that these companies actually have to make groceries more accessible for last mile delivery within the neighborhoods that have these warehouses. Thanks.
Thank you. Katie, I don't see any additional hands up.
From the community board members. Okay. Van, I just wanted to ask, was there someone that you wanted to direct that question to? Or just?
I wasn't sure who would be the right person. My guess is that that's not a topic particularly discussed well, so I don't know. Maybe someone is within the city government or state government is trying to look into how it can bring more resources into the communities affected by the pollution from last mile facilities. So I'm not sure, I guess, is my answer to you, who to direct it at.
Okay, I heard something earlier from the state assembly member's office about proportionality as a possible legislative action, which is around if these facilities get built, what this means for the community. But I don't know if the assembly member's office is still on and would want to respond to that. Jenny is still on.
Yeah, I can jump in. So, we haven't really explored this idea of trying to get compensated for the ability to kind of pollute a specific neighborhood. I think at this moment we're, focused on just preventing future facilities and the pollution from getting worse, as opposed to, necessarily trying to get compensation for this happening. But if that is something the community wants to explore, I can imagine, potentially some fines or fees or something like that. But it would be, I think, working out a deal with the facilities and the companies would be difficult, given they are, as of right, they're already there. So curious to hear if other people have thoughts on this, but it is not something that we have explored as an approach because it just kind of doesn't feel right to us.
Thank you. We're going to move to public comment, public questions. And if you have a sense of who you want to direct the question to from the electeds, the agencies, representatives, you can. Jeremy, do we have, we're 88 strong, still on. Do we have public comment? Public questions?
Attendees,
Q&A?
you could raise your hand if you wish to make comment or ask a question. I don't see any hands up right now, Katie. Oh, wait, got a hand up. Betty Bernhardt? You can unmute yourself.
Yes, I have a concern basically because I got hurt in my job a long time ago, like about a week ago, like I was on a walker. Now I noticed that the what do you call it? The trucks were coming from Beer Street to turn on Van Brunt. Literally the bus had to literally back up and let the truck pass, which is a concern because I had a doctor's appointment, which I wasn't able to make due to the traffic of this truck making the bus go backwards instead of letting the bus go go towards, towards, what do you call it? Beer Street, which I don't think that's fair to anybody that's taking transportation, that the bus literally had to let the truck go pass by. So my concern is that Van Brunt is not good for those trucks to turn on because it interferes with the transportation. That is all.
Thank you. I have Noah Atchison next. Noah Atchison, you can unmute yourself.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I had a question for the DOT. I guess you mentioned that there were traffic mitigation strategies that the DOT could do. I guess I'm wondering which of those traffic mitigation strategies you're currently sort of looking at, and knowing that there's a bit of a ticking clock here with regards to when these facilities open. There's things like daylighting the curbs, sort of doing things to just generally slow truck traffic down Bay Street. A lot of people have brought up the fact that trucks illegally go up Columbia, things to discourage that, sort of changes to the physical infrastructure. Are any of those currently under consideration? And if so, is there a timeline for that? And how does that timeline relate to when these facilities actually open?
Thanks for your question. So we, based on the meeting that we had with Congress member Carlos Menchaca's office, as well as the other folks from the community in Red Hook, we have committed to looking at opportunities to evaluate alternatives and for the truck routes. But I would say more immediately, we've looked at opportunities for truck wayfinding signage to better direct trucks into and out of the neighborhood. We certainly think there's opportunities to partner with NYPD for more direct enforcement to reduce some of the truck activity that may be cutting through Columbia. And Keith, feel free to add anything else that I may have missed.
Yeah, no. That Denise added with the signage that we're looking at, there are the direct trucks off Columbia, because they certainly should not be using Columbia Street on a truck route. And as far as the timing on that, that should be soon, because we did get the request like a month ago, over a month ago, that walkthrough, and starting to look at that. So we're going to follow up on that.
Joe Goldfarb is next. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. I do work and have 2 kids at the school that is right in between 2 of the mega warehouses. And I wanted to ask the Department of Transportation for a bit of help. We have put in for ballards to be at the different corners where people walk, just to protect them. And we've been told that they need to be reviewed by the New York Police Department Counterterrorism Bureau. But we're doing this just to be able to protect people that are on the corners from trucks or cars that go over the corner. We just had a construction truck, uproot a tree and a stop sign. So we recognize the clear need to do this if we have students there. So I wanted to see Keith and Denise, if I could email you about this offline, because it is one of those things that, given this situation, if you know about the situation, we just need some help to get them reviewed.
Yeah, this is Keith, and we can certainly review that. Typically with ballards, what we do is we actually ask for their revocable consent. And so obviously we talk about school as a public entity, and we have to talk to the school about that. And part of that is actually who's going to maintain those ballards, particularly if they get damaged or destroyed. But yeah, you can certainly email me and my office. We can work with you on that request and other issues that you may have.
Michelle Ocampo, you could unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm specifically interested in the traffic in the Red Hook area. The chaos is not just about trucks, it's also about cars and signage. DOT needs to not do a study that's going to last a year. I can tell them today, and I think they'll agree, the signage needs to be improved all around. Pedestrian safety is absolutely never regarded. There's horrible conditions at Hamilton and Clinton where trucks will be coming in when these warehouses are built. I strongly urge the DOT to come in right away and hopefully make some big changes. I also am interested in the Port Authority getting involved in this conversation. There's a lot of waterway traffic to be talked about, and I don't see Port Authority here tonight, and I wish that we could have them involved in this conversation. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I cut Noah Atchison off a little early, sorry, last time, and he has a follow-up. So Noah, you could talk again.
Sorry, I just wanted to confirm. So the only current DOT plan right now is increased signage. There's no plans for daylighting the curbs or sort of any other changes to infrastructure as of now.
So, we are committed to taking a closer look at kind of other improvements that need to be made as it relates to improving safety and access to and from facilities and making sure that we're protecting vulnerable road users. I think that is a standard element, and one of the slides that I included on my presentation also highlighted DOT's safety toolbox and other elements that we can use. So again, it's what I mentioned earlier was what we're looking at right now as it relates to improving some of the conditions that were identified at the walkthrough with the community, as well as Councilmember Menchaca's office for the off-route activity that was happening at Columbia Street. So we are looking at other opportunities as well as these facilities come online.
Okay, but there's no current timeline for any of that, or it's just sort of being looked at.
Correct.
Okay. And that includes Hamilton Avenue too, right? Where there was the big traffic study in 2014 about that being a very dangerous corner. Or is there any plans for Hamilton sort of in the works right now?
So we reviewed the study that came actually from a DCP study about Hamilton Avenue. And we reviewed then, and obviously the elected officials, all the elected officials in the area after the last fatality there, wrote us a letter to look at safety improvements at Hampton Avenue. So we are reviewing that. And we are planning to get back to them and the community on Hampton. No timetable on that yet, but we are looking at it.
Getting back to the panelist list, I have Karen Blondell next.
Yes, this is for DOT. So I live on Columbia Street between Lorraine and West 9th. And one of the things is when the trucks come through empty, the noise is very startling. It wakes me up. That's mostly done in the middle of the night. So there is an issue with noise and also potholes everywhere. I see cracks all along, not just, in the street, but because we have so much resiliency work and because Amazon is going onto, pavement, there are so many cracks throughout Red Hook that belong to DOT. Also, did you guys factor in our climate issues along Beard Street, where we have deployable inflatables that have to go in if a hurricane comes? We have all of these things that need to go in that same space where we have 5 major last mile trucking facilities. And again, coming from the community, Keith, I want to support DOT, but I am one of the most active members of not only Red Hook, but Gowanus. And I knew nothing about your walkthrough and I was home. So I don't know who you guys are picking to walk through with, but I think you need to expand it out a little bit and include the residents of public housing in those walkthroughs. So just answer the question about the potholes and the noise, please.
Yes, so, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna, Karen, the walkthrough that was discussed was convened by Carlos Menchaca's office, where he invited a bunch of agencies. I don't know if there were, I think it was just agencies. I don't see Menchaca on the line still. So it was convened by Menchaca's office. So I just wanted to make sure that that was shared. But to your point, there should be a walkthrough with the community. So, and not to derail your question, that is directly to Keith.
So in regards to roads that have potholes, if you bring it to our attention, we can certainly repair them, and they can do that on a timely basis. And if the roads need completely resurfacing, we can look to do that as well. So we can work with you on that issue. In regards to noise, I mean, typically with noise complaints, as I'm sure you know, they usually go to DEP. We don't deal with them. But again, I think that's about the overall truck issues in general that you're asking about, not just the noise itself. So that's why the trucks are using that route. And that's what we're saying about signage, is so they guide the trucks where they need to go and keep them away from the places we don't. That's our strategy.
But Keith, the follow-up too is, you guys, I've been in Red Hook for almost 40 years. And you guys at one point put these mid structures along Clinton and Columbia Street. And that helps because people don't walk to both ends to cross the street, especially when you have Mill Street and Center Mall, which are pedestrian walkways. So it helps. The problem is trucks are parking there in the middle of the roadway, which cuts off the sight for the pedestrian as they're crossing the street. We cannot see around two trucks, a UPS truck and a FedEx truck to cross the street. And that's going on Clinton and also on Columbia Street. So we need more enforcement. I recommend we put some cameras that are shared by the community, because you do have a program that awards the community for trucks sitting around idling and for other violations. That through the CC, the Climate Protection Act and other mechanisms should be the way that we enforce environmental justice in this community and put the money back in the community. We have technology now. I shouldn't have to go out there like I'm doing right now and continually record trucks and knock on windows and tell them you're idling in front of my window for 10 minutes now. You know, educate the community on the difference between what trucks can idle, because there are some that can idle. Like a concrete mixing truck can idle because it has to have the mechanism going. But there are other trucks, they're sitting in there eating a sandwich, taking a rest. They shouldn't be idling on our streets.
Thank you. I have Daniel Wiley next.
Thanks. I want to point out that the meeting that Carlos Menchaca's office organized was attended by Port Authority. So to respond to Michelle Ocampo, Port Authority was at that. You know, as we know, Hildegard and her team, supported by Community Board, you know, is advocating for the truck route to be moved away from public housing and off of Van Brunt toward the waterfront, and taken more off the community roads into the cruise terminal area. So that's something that we discussed with the agencies to look at further. I'm also aware that, you know, going back to when Polly Trottenberg was DOT commissioner, we were asking for a truck route study or some proactive moves to look at how to mitigate the truck route. And you know, we were always told that the smart truck management plan had to be finished before they would even consider that. Well, now that smart truck management plan is done, and you do have a toolbox, we would like to look at a broader toolbox, and you know, to reiterate what the community boards have been asking for, really evaluate. We know from studies, even for the streetcar over 10 years ago, that the turn radii and a lot of problems with the way the streets are constructed in this very old neighborhood make it very hard to put something like a trolley in, regardless of BQE dreams that some developers have. I'd also point out that IKEA, before they came in, put in improvements to the way traffic comes in and out of Red Hook that people take for granted today. So it shows that actually corporations could work with DOT to mitigate their impacts. So for instance, the left-hand turn lanes that are dedicated under Hamilton Avenue that make safer turns into Red Hook was a result of Sam Schwartz doing a study and then working with DOT to implement better ways in and out of Red Hook for the circulation. You know, also when we got money for the trolley study, which has nothing to do with BQX, by the way, there were improvements to the bus route going in and out of Red Hook to be able to cut through earlier instead of it making a big circuitous loop south like 4 blocks to then cross Hamilton Avenue. I also want to mention, with my 26 seconds remaining, that the Congresswoman, we just sent a letter to Pete Buttigieg, U.S. Transportation, which has Murad, to support Cross Harbor Trailer on Barge Package Delivery Demonstration Project, which basically would help to put these tractor trailers on barges. But I agree with Karen Blondell's point. It's not just about how goods come in, it's more also about how those goods go out to the last couple of mile delivery, which is a major problem. And I think what IKEA and others should be doing in a study is looking at how can that last mile delivery be on the water to nodes that then get delivered, as opposed to going through the local streets and impact
Please wrap up.
the environmental justice community. Thank you very much, from Congresswoman Velasquez.
Thank you. I have Marissa Prefer. Marissa, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, CB6, CB7. Thank you, elected officials. And I just want to share, I'm a Red Hook resident as well as a community organizer working with the Red Hook Initiative and other folks. Pioneer Works is my employer, and I work and live in the neighborhood. And I have 2 questions. I have one for Jenny and other elected officials who mentioned spearheading, as well as further defining the terminology related to the last mile e-commerce warehouses, as well as instituting a moratorium on these facilities. And I'm wondering what the next steps are to push for those 2 things to happen, and how can community members collaborate in these efforts? And then another question for CB6 and CB7. Do you have a timeline for our next meeting that will include the Department of Buildings? As earlier mentioned, that it's very important that they're present for some of these conversations. Thank you so much.
Let me take the first part and then I will open it up. Department of Buildings was invited. We never got a reply. So they had enough, time and notice. We asked them to participate. I earlier had up the agenda of all the agencies and authorities who were invited. So that's just one. I do want to note that we had wanted them to come to this meeting and they didn't come. Can we ask Jenny to respond to the question around next steps and any other electeds?
Yeah, so on the moratorium question, we've been kind of doing a bit of digging, speaking with policy experts to just try to figure out what is feasible. We're drawing some inspiration from a bill that was introduced by Ithaca Assembly member Anna Kellis around instituting a moratorium on Bitcoin mining facilities due to their environmental impact. What we've been told is that it is hard for the state to institute a moratorium over something that it does not have jurisdiction over. So in the case of the Bitcoin mining facility, they have jurisdiction over essentially the air and water, the water and energy permits for such facilities, because they're being commissioned off of decommissioned power plants. So there needs to be some sort of hook into state law in which the state already has jurisdiction over in order to design a moratorium that would make legal sense. This is definitely an area that we're just starting to poke into, and that gets to the second part of my response, which is addressing your question about how we can work together to kind of push some of these things forward. So I wanted to get to this in my statement earlier, but ran out of time. We are interested in putting together a policy research team of community members, technical experts. We're going to need everyone who has expertise on any of these issues to kind of engage in community discussions such as this one, to gather feedback and to use it to inform our legislative approach. That is something that, we would very much like to be part of this public process. I know there have been community discussions convened over the last few weeks. We want to keep it open, but we want to keep the work going. So to the extent that there are community members here that are interested in being a part of that, we are starting to assemble, we're starting to do the research. I think the assumption is that we're going to need to do our own legal research around this sort of thing and not rely on kind of assembly staff or central staff, although we can always solicit feedback from them. So that's kind of where we are currently. And I'm curious to hear if any city level elected officials or agency representatives have also looked into this moratorium idea and what it would entail.
I have Jerry Arbor next.
I should have clarified what I said earlier as to the moratorium, and that was in reference to the city taking action, which is the way that we would go, or I think we have to go, especially since the zoning is controlled by the city and not the state on local projects. So my idea was for the moratorium to be passed in the city council by this city council, not waiting for the new city council. It might get us some more votes, might not, but by then we'll have who knows how many more on the planning stage and with their foundations trying to get into the ground. And one other thing, and I know it was mentioned earlier, both DDC and the Office of Emergency Management are working in Red Hook on flood control for hurricanes. And I don't know if anyone has taken a look at this. I've attended a meeting with DDC, 2 meetings with DDC, and in fact, Office of Emergency Management is having a online meeting tomorrow to talk about more of those, what I call sandboxes, but they're not sandboxes, though, which they placed on Reed Street and Van Brunt Street. They're now planning to have them come south of the container port on Conover and on Ferris Street and who knows where else. So I think that in addition to everything that's going on, the fact that as of right means that nobody speaks to anybody, and it's bad enough city agencies don't speak to other agencies. We have planning being done without anybody knowing what's going on. Thank you.
Katie, I don't have any additional hands up.
Okay, great. There are 79 people still on the line. We started with over 136. So again, time and commitment. Appreciate whatever time you're able to join tonight. Give your thoughts and questions. Clearly, there will be another meeting. We have folks here that want to follow up on particular issues. You can share any contact information for any of the panelists. You can put that in your in the chat. We will be convening again. We will have questions again. Again, this was a CB6 Community Board and CB7 Community Board joint committee meeting. It's the first time we've done that. It's just the second time that these committees have met to talk about last mile. And clearly it's urgent and pressing in terms of being able to act quickly. So I look forward to working with my fellow chairs from CB6, Hildegard and Eric and Smara and others that are here tonight, and to quickly move forward with next steps. But with that, I will wrap it and say thank you and good night to everybody.
Good night. Thank you.